And our final topic, guys, is past papers and exercises. So this is a pretty obvious one, probably the one that students find most useful when it comes to revising is actually practice past papers and practice, at least if you can't get your hands on past papers, at least use practice papers. So past papers are more useful, I suppose, because they really are reflective of what the test you're going to be doing, whereas practice papers could be anything even that teachers make up, so you mightn't find them as useful. Do both. So do and redo as many past papers as you can and keep to the time limit that's set on the past paper. Depends on the subject, what you're doing, what you're studying. But that is why I put that in bold and underlined it as well and capitalized it. Do and redo. Most of the time students just do a past paper and that's it. They get their mark back, or they mark it themselves if they have the model answers, or their teacher or their lecturer marks it for them, or their tutor marks it for them. Do it again at some stage, if not immediately. Do it like in a week or two, and see how do you still make the same mistakes, or what do you need to look up on. A lot of students think you do a past paper and that's the past paper used up forever. It's only the start. You should redo it again, especially the stuff that you keep getting wrong. It's no better way of quizzing yourself than having a go at doing a past paper maybe 4 or 5 times if you have the time. Consult the mark schemes to get answers and see what examiners are looking for. Always get the mark schemes. This is very important for GCSE and A-level, and if you have mark schemes depending on the subject you're doing at university, see if you can get that from your lecturer or your tutor. You need to see what the examiner is looking for to give you the marks. There's not much point in getting back at your paper marked and they just correct what you've done right and put an X to what you've got wrong. You need to be able to see what were all the right possible answers for each question. If there are indeed multiple correct answers, there may only be one. So consult the mark schemes to see the style, the format, the language that the examiners are looking for. Make a list of recurring questions. They usually keep coming up with the same ones year after year, and learn these questions. I get my students to do this as part of their weekly revision in my classes, to actually make up their own exam questions based on previous years, to assign that to their set work. Usually it's not very difficult. It's usually something like, what key is the piece in? It's a D major or C minor, whatever it is. That always comes up. So make a list of those questions that keep coming up and see, can you find the answers? So I've done that for my students, to be honest. I went through all the past papers for 10 years and just sort of came up with like the top 20 questions that come up in every single past paper, and just get them to do it as homework assignments and use it as revision notes, use it to make flashcards. Use other practice workbooks, even if they're from other boards. I tend not to do that because the board I'm with in Northern Ireland is CCEA, which is a little bit different in grading as well as the type of things that are taught. But structurally, I suppose it's quite similar to the English exam boards. So, but depending on what exam board you're doing, and depending on what subject you're studying in college or university, there may be published material out there. CGP is really good for GCSE and A-level stuff. They release a lot of things that I use with my students. Entire practice workbooks that come with audio and the answers and everything, and students can do that anytime. I set as assignments for my students to do, but they technically could do it themselves. They don't really need me. They only nearly need me if they don't understand why they're getting something wrong, or they don't understand the correct answer, what it means, and that's when they come to me. So yeah, CGP is really good for, as I say, for GCSE and A-level, but for college, I'm sure if you went to your university bookshop or asked your lecturer, are there any sort of practice exam workbooks out there? If there aren't any, or are there not enough past papers or practice papers, there are probably things out there from other universities that are that can help you practice your exam technique and your exam paper technique. For longer questions, especially unfamiliar music, practice writing out keywords quickly. Yeah, this again is a wee bit more to do with music. And the one I tell my students to remember is triad, triple T triad. I get them to think that for unfamiliar music, and the way this usually goes is in the exam they'll play an unfamiliar piece of music and then ask you a series of questions about it. Is it what tonality is it? What instruments are involved? How does the texture change? How does it end? What cadence is there? What cadence happens at the end of the first phrase? What style and period do you think it's from? Whatever. A good way to sort of get the mind working for this is anytime I do this as a sort of spot quiz on the spot quiz with my students, I'll play a piece of music out of nowhere in the middle of class. I'll say, okay, tell me about this and this of the piece. So as soon as they hear an unfamiliar piece, they immediately think of triple T triad, which stands for the tonality, is it major, minor, the tempo, fast or slow, the texture, is it thick or thin, are there many instruments or just one, is there many melodies or just one, like polyphonic, homophonic, that type of thing. A register is the melody or the harmonies, the accompaniment high or low, or all wide registers used. Instruments that are used, obvious what that means, but also it could include voices as well, I suppose. Articulation, is it smooth or detached, staccato, legato, and dynamics, is it loud or soft, or piano or forte, I suppose, or soft and loud. So my students have got that hammered into them from the very beginning of the year. Triple T triad for unfamiliar music, just immediately hear 5 seconds of a piece and immediately be able to tell me everything like that, just from going through it step by step by step by step. Also, for past papers and exercises, wrong answers for any past paper questions or exercises, make a flashcard for it, especially if you're redoing the past paper and you keep getting that question wrong or you're not putting in enough. Redo it as often as you need to and make a flashcard for what you keep getting wrong. That's an obvious one, but most students tend to just sort of forget it. As I say, they get their paper back and ignore, and they say, okay, that's what I got, I'll just study more. Yeah, but take the paper with you when you're studying more and have it open in front of you and base your study completely on what you've been given back, what feedback you've been given on your paper. Flowchart. I tend not to use these anymore. I'm more of a flashcards and mind and spider diagrams and mind maps kind of guy, but flowcharts may be a bit more if there's a process involved, especially maybe for sciences and things, like, is there a start, middle, and end to something? Yeah, flowchart may be good, but I suppose I could do that music as well when it comes to a piece of music. Is how does it start? What happens next? What's the next main theme? What happens after that? What instruments are involved? What happens in the middle section? What comes after that? How does it end? So you can do a flowchart through each set work, listening and writing as many possible points in chronological order. Use notes to fill in any blanks. Yeah, so if you go from start and then you think the first step is something, but you've missed a couple of things, then you could have like a little line coming out of here, signifying what you've missed, and that makes it really easy to focus on what you need to practice your recall on and what you need to make more flashcards on. So it's always the things that you keep missing, forgetting, or getting wrong. Add timelines and tables to your flowcharts, linking information through the journey method or word object association. Yeah, I suppose you could do that too. So for me, that might be for the music side of things, making a list of all the main key changes in a piece. Or the order of themes and which instruments play them, have a little table for that. You can add that to your flowchart as well. So instead of having it just as a box to a box to a box, it's like a table box with, the theme instrument, next theme instrument, next theme instrument, and you're doing it in chronological order. Yes, do a marks analysis of how you lost marks and to see where you need to improve. Now again, this will change depending on the subject you're doing. You may have to have a different starting letter, but hopefully something will make sense. But for me, that worked out very well. Marks, when you're talking about past paper. Marks analysis of how you lost marks and to see where you need to improve. So the first thing for music error. You looked in the right place, but you couldn't find the answer. Okay, so that's something to go through your past paper and see where's that happened, especially obviously if you're doing music, this is more applicable, but Depending on your subject, this might be slightly worded differently. Application, you looked in the wrong place, but you answered the question for that wrong place correctly. So you may have answered the question for the wrong place, the wrong thing that you've been looking at. R, read the question, you looked in the right place, but you answered a different question entirely. That happens quite a few times. So students are asked and say to identify the melodic features of this theme, and they start talking about the harmonic features like the key, or the use of suspensions, or the chord progressions that are used, or the use of cadence at the end. All of that is harmonic features. So again, I go through with my students exactly the different types of information they need to learn. So again, that's going to change depending on the subject you're doing. You should maybe have a list, or maybe 2 groups, or maybe more, maybe 4 or 5 different groups of the types of information you need to learn. Again, that goes back as well to the Lightner box that I use, the different colors for melodic, harmonic, rhythmic, orchestration. Each color will represent a different type of information. So I could have all the harmonic features are all going to be in blue. So I could look at the Lightner box and immediately see that all these flashcards are all the harmonic features of all of the set works that my students will be studying. So things like that. Organizing your revision that way can be very helpful. Yeah. So communication may be another one. You looked in the right place but gave a badly worded answer. Again, very common. Just means practice, a bit more practice, looking at the mark schemes to see what way they expect the answer to be phrased. Knowledge, that's the worst one. You don't understand the question. That's bad. If you don't understand what they're asking you at all, you need to get in touch with your lecturer, your tutor, or your teacher, whoever it is. Hopefully, if they've marked your paper for you, they could say, you need to see me about this. Don't view that as a really bad thing or criticism or anything. It's just that they know that this is an urgent thing, that they need to go over this with you. Okay, so you didn't understand the question is the worst out of all of these, because if you don't understand the question, you haven't a hope in hell in getting any marks whatsoever. You're just really guessing. You might as well just send anyone in to do the exam. So that's a big one. You have to brush up on your knowledge. And S, the statement. This is a common one. You didn't state enough in your answer. Only 2 statements if there's a 4-point answer. So the way that some of the exams that I do and my students work with the examination board, CCEA, is at the end of each question, there's usually a little box that shows you exactly how much this exact question is worth. And if it says 4 marks and they get a big box where you're meant to put your answer in, then you should write 4 points for 4 marks. So if you put in 2 statements, you're not going to get full marks, obvious. And a lot of students tend to waffle on as well for these types of answers. So less waffle and more getting to the point. Always put yourself in the shoes of the examiner. They may have 40 or 50 of these things to mark in one go. They don't want to read through waffle. They just get to the point and make your point. Okay. See exam terms and revision topics mind map. That's something for my students. I've created a little mind map in a different document for them, which tells them all about the themes and structure, the harmonic features in blue, the melodic features in green, and the orchestration features in yellow. And again, that corresponds exactly to the flashcards that they're going to be using as well. So you don't need to be that highly organized. It just helps. Okay. Use internet resources. Focus on sound is a good one. Quizlet, Brainscape contain hundreds of quizzes you can do. Use focus on sound dictionary and tests regularly. Yeah, that's an online thing for musicians. But Quizlet's great. Brainscape's great. Go Conquer. I keep saying Go Conquer because I didn't put it into this. It's not new or anything. It's been around for a few years, but I just hadn't come across it before, which is my bad, but it's definitely worth checking out. Go Conquer. But also use Quizlet and Brainscape as well. Get used to those websites and apps and mess around with them a wee bit. Consult the CCEA or your whatever exam board is website to see how examiners award marks. Usually these are called EEPs, or the exemplary answers, I suppose, especially for extended writing. Yeah, so for like the essay type questions, keep to the point. Extended writing isn't like an English essay. Okay, so that's more to do with the music students I teach. But you guys, whatever exam board you're doing, don't expect, you should expect your teacher to have done a lot of this for you, but there's no harm in you going in and having a look at the material that is provided there, because there are sections of the exam board websites that are for parents, there are sections that are for students, and there are sections that are for teachers. So hopefully your teacher has told you, go on the website and have a look around, because there may be things that you want to know that are quite important that are on that website. Maybe it mightn't be anything to do with past papers, but it may be something else to do with exam dates or how to handle stress or good revision techniques and that type of thing. You'd be surprised at how much effort exam boards go into making these things available for students, and they don't use them as often as they should anyway. And if you're at university, again, get talking to your tutor or your lecturer about let's see how examiners award marks. It just shows an interest, it shows initiative. A thing I disliked when I was lecturing as a teaching assistant in Queen's University Belfast is that quite a few students will come up to me and say, I didn't understand this. Now, as a university student, my immediate reply to them, it would be, what have you done to find out more about this? And if the answer is nothing, that's the first thing I'd say is, okay, go to the library and consult these books, or ask the librarian to show you which books to get stuck into. So there's a lot more when it comes to university of you taking the initiative and taking responsibility for your own learning. Whereas if you're in secondary school, you're probably thinking it's a bit harsh. Like, you're probably just relying a little bit more on your teacher. But show some initiative now, because when you get to uni, there's no one going to hold your hand for you to do it. You have to do it yourself. So get used to doing it now, I suppose. Check out the exam board websites. Get started. Which questions do you need to know in advance? This is a big one. For music especially, you might listen to a piece of music and it'll just say, what is the key of this piece? So unless you know it in advance, there's not going to be any hint. You're not going to have the score, or you might not have perfect pitch, and you can't tell just by listening what key it's in, or the structure, or the title, the composer, or the period. Well, if you've got really good musicianship skills and oral skills, you should be able to tell the period of the piece, but a lot of these things you should know in advance, and that goes for any subject, for any level, GCSE, A-level, or university. You guys need to know the questions where there isn't going to be any visual or audio prompt whatsoever in front of you. It's good to sort of get a list of those things down and think, these are the things I just need to learn, and I'm not going to have any help on the day. And you're going to know those type of questions based on your going through your past papers and see what type of questions come up in the past, and you think, how would you answer that? There's no help at all in the paper. And if you are super nerdy and have a lot of free time, create your own exam papers and exercises, testing yourself and friends. Go Conquer is, I keep saying go. I'm not sponsored by guys, promise. They're not paying me anything for this. So create your own exam papers and exercises and tests. You can do all of that on Go Conquer. You can create mind maps and flow charts and quizzes as well. And you can also look at all the quizzes that teachers and students, millions of teachers and students all around the world have made over the years, and they may have even done the same subjects as you, and you can go in and have a look to see how other teachers and students coped with exam papers and exam type or exam style questions. So yeah, the internet's a brilliant resource for this, obviously. Okay everyone, thanks very much for watching. There are plenty of other videos on my channel that deal with this subject and other topics you may be interested in. So if you want more, please like and subscribe. Leave any questions or suggestions you may have in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to get round to them. So do let me know if there are other things you would like me to cover, and I'll see you again next time.